Morning. So this is a Thursday seminar. I hope you're in the right room because everyone has to come to this, so I guess it's the right room. My name is Crispin Loomis, and I'll be presenting today. So first I wanted to start off with a self-introduction of where I've been. So for starters, I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. Not many people know where it is. In the United States, it lies between Chicago and Canada. So it's a pretty cold place, and I went there all through high school. And then after high school, I wanted to get out and see more of the world. So at that time, I went to a gap year. So before going to university, I went down and did a homestay in Chile. So I lived for one whole year down in Chile with a host family and ate Chilean food, and went to a 5th year of high school and really enjoyed seeing a very different culture. So after seeing Chile, it was enough seeing the world, so then I was happy to go back to Wisconsin for my university degree. But after a year or two, I started to get bored of Wisconsin again. So at that time, I decided I should go and visit and study abroad for a year. So then I went to Bonn University in Germany and spent a full year there. And in Germany, it was wonderful being in Europe. I was able to travel to France, to Spain, Greece, Italy, Turkey, see many different countries. And then I went back to Wisconsin to finish my degree. And once I had my degree in mathematics, I didn't know what I wanted to do next. But I did like studying languages, and I liked seeing other countries. So at that time, I decided to continue on and see Asia, which I hadn't seen before, and came to Japan, which is where I've been ever since. So as you've probably gathered, I like studying languages. My English is good American English, Midwestern English, Standard English. Y mientras que estaba en Chile, también estudié para hablar español por como un año. Und in Deutschland, dann studiere ich Deutsch für ein Jahr und es war sehr interessant. でも、そして今はやっぱり日本語が一番私の2番目の一番得意言葉ですね。最初に日本に来た時は結構集中的に勉強してきました。もうドイツ語は半年ぐらいでなんとか身につきましたけど、でもやっぱり日本語は1年半ぐらいかかってしまいました。でその時はもう毎週2回ぐらいをレッスンに行って結構集中的で、そして日本語能力試験を受けて2級を受けました。でその時からずっとサボってて何も勉強してないんですけど、なんとか。然后我也练习一点普通话，我觉得普通话很有意思，可是我说的不好。So, other stuff. So my last job, I've had a couple of jobs here in Japan, but the last job that I had was I was the site executive for Prudential Systems Japan Limited. Many of you probably know Prudential Life Insurance. It's a very big, very successful company here in Japan. And also Gibraltar Life Insurance, which is another big company. And they are all within the same Prudential holding company. And there are other Prudential group companies within Japan as well. So a while ago, Prudential decided that they wanted all of their insurance companies in Japan to have one IT company. So Prudential United States hired me as the first employee to build the company to support all of the Prudential life insurance companies in Japan. So I was employee number 1, and after a few years with the employees and contractors and outsourced staff, we had about 500 people that I was managing. So it got quite big. It was quite interesting. I enjoyed it, but insurance is very much behind on technology. They weren't using modern techniques or neural networks or anything within the last 10 years. So I left and eventually came here. But this is a Thursday seminar. So I want to teach you some things today. I thought of some of the things that I could talk about, and one of the first things I thought it was talking about investing. So over my time, I have done a lot of investing in various things. I've invested in US stocks, I've invested in index funds, ETFs, exchange-traded funds. I've invested in friends' companies. Here I'm starting a startup, give me some money. That went so-so. I've invested in futures, in commodities. I've invested in options, where if the price goes over this price, you make more money. I've invested in futures options, which are options on futures in natural gas. I've invested in venture capital funds, hedge funds. I've bought real estate in the United States. I've bought real estate in Japan. I've bought US oil wells, which was kind of interesting, but it wasn't a good investment, so don't do that. I bought Japanese solar farms. I have about 200 kilowatts of solar farms here in Japan. And that's a good investment. So the lessons I have from the things that I've done are pretty simple. So the first thing to be aware of is if you have a good investment, people don't need to sell it to you. So if someone is calling you up saying, oh, this is a really good investment, you should totally do this, you really need to do this investment, that's not a good investment. Because good investments, people find them and invest. So in general, people who are calling, or if they have dedicated salespeople, they have to pay the salesperson, which costs money. And if it was really a good investment, people who have money would find them, and they wouldn't need to sell them. So following on that is that you want to minimize the investment cost, the investment fees. For instance, those salespeople cost money, and that's money that you don't get from the investment. When I'm looking at mutual funds or other investments, the first thing to look at is how much money just goes to the people who made the investment. So that's one of the reasons why I like index funds and ETFs. The cost of investment is very, very low, less than 1%, less than 0.1% sometimes. So I recommend that when you start investing, start with index funds and ETFs. It's easy, it goes with the market, it gives you a broad range, and it outperforms most people who try to pick individual stocks, just because you just put the money there and it stays. And when you get more profit, I recommend then that you add in real estate as possible. Real estate has a lot of advantages in that it's leveraged, but with an asset tied to it. It has tax benefits and the depreciation. I didn't realize how good it was until I got involved in it, and most of my money nowadays goes to real estate. So that's investment. So another topic, moving on to other things I like. So my favorite search engine is not Google. My favorite search engine is Google Scholar. So I'm not sure if you know this. Google Scholar is it's a Google website that only searches scientific studies. So these are studies that have been published in research papers, kind of like
patents.
What?
Patents as well.
Sorry?
Patents.
Patents. You can search on it. So when I research something, say something about health, or is this healthy, or how do I work this, Google search is the first place I go because I can read the actual studies. It's kind of like archive for everything else than neural nets. It's where you actually see the scientists and what they have found. And many times I would read an article and I would think, does that really work that way? And then I go to Google Scholar and find the actual study. And almost every time there's something important, the article, the newspaper, magazine summary left out. So I'll give you an example of some research I did on one topic, which is jet lag. So many of you have to travel to conferences that are overseas, and and you're expected to stay awake during those conferences despite having a time gap. At my previous job in Prudential, I had to travel very frequently back to New York and then back to Japan. And New York is almost perfectly on the other side, about 12 hours of jet lag. So I found myself struggling with jet lag to stay awake. It would be about a one-week trip usually, and I oftentimes would have trouble paying attention. The company would pay money, and I would find myself falling asleep in the meetings they wanted me to go to. So I went to Google Scholar and started researching what causes jet lag. How do you change your schedule? How do you avoid having jet lag? So the first thing I found was there's basically you have a circadian rhythm, which determines when you are most awake and when you are tired. So you can see the exact times will differ by person, but there's a morning time when usually you'll be very awake after you wake up sometime, and it's hard to sleep then. And then in the middle of the day, you probably have noticed there's a time when you feel, maybe after lunch, a little more drowsy. And then you have another peak that happens around before nightfall, so around dusk time. This is unfortunate because I think this happens for many people when they're riding the train home. This is some of your top thinking time, and you're spending it on a train. But such as it is. So I wanted to research now how to change this. So what I found out is not surprising. The first thing is that it's caused by light, is how you shift your schedule backwards and forwards. And that's kind of, okay, that makes sense. The sun comes up, you see light, and that can shift your schedule. But it's not just light. It's a specific wavelength of light. It's actually light here, blue light, is what shifts your schedule. Red light doesn't. So if you have a white light, like you get from fluorescent lights, this includes blue light spectrum. So this will change your sleep schedules. But if you're looking at, say, a campfire, which is very little red light, it doesn't change your sleep habits. So it's a very precise bandwidth. This is about 470 nanometers, if I remember my unit of wavelengths of light, that does this. And there are receptors in your eye that receive this light. And they even receive this light if your eyes are closed. So it actually travels through the eyelid and will still change your schedules. But the next tricky part is that actually it depends very much when you get that light, how it changes your sleep schedule. This is the phase response curve. So it's a little tricky, and it took me a little while to figure out what it meant. The first thing is that from about 8 a.m. in the morning or so, depending on the person, until about actually around 2 a.m. in the morning, the phase response curve is largely zero. In other words, for about 18 hours during the day, if you get blue light, you don't get blue light, it doesn't matter. It doesn't shift your schedule at all. So if you stay in the middle of the day in a dark room, your sleep schedule, your circadian rhythm doesn't shift either way. But then after around 2 a.m. or so, until say about 5 a.m., there's a period where your circadian rhythm shifts heavily and is very sensitive to blue light. And during this 3-hour window, if you see a bright blue light, it will push your daytime, your sleep time back. And then there's an inflection point. And now this is good, okay, we're moving our sleep time back, and then all of a sudden when your body hits its minimum core body temperature, now it has the opposite effect. And now if you get blue light, it's going to make you fall asleep sooner, much sooner. And so you have this cycle where to move your sleep time deliberately, there are 3 hours when you need as much blue light as you can find. Get all the blue light to make yourself sleep later. And then after that, the next 3 hours, you have to avoid all blue light. You have to stay away from blue light. So, and this, if you're shifting your schedule, this period changes every day. So when I traveled overseas, I have to make myself a plan. So I made an Excel sheet that I can track this with. It's fairly easy for me to change the offset, and everything's automated. So if I just change this to a 0 or a 1, all the time schedules change. So this November, I'm going to a seminar conference in San Francisco, and this is my jet lag plan for that 1-week trip. So it's, let's see, to read it, so I'm leaving on Tuesday, but on the Friday before, I stay up until 2 a.m. and get all the blue light I can. And then bedtime, no blue light at all. And then the next night, I stay up until 6 a.m., blue light, and then sleep. And the next night, stay up until 8 a.m. in the morning, and then sleep. And then after that, I go on my flight. So then I arrive in San Francisco, and now I'm on a reasonable time. I'm going to start to get tired maybe around here, but I can stay up and get blue light here. And now I have to avoid blue light from about 7 until 9 o'clock at night. So you might ask yourself, how exactly do you get blue light or avoid blue light? Well, I went to Amazon to solve all my problems, and I got myself a blue light LED. So when I'm supposed to be getting blue light, I put this on my desk for about 15 minutes in the hour. It's kind of bright, but no, it's okay.
But that is very bad for your eye, right?
Yeah? I didn't get that Google yet. I might have to look that up. It's blue light, they say it's bad for your eyes over a long period, and you have blue light blocking glasses. But short period, about 15 minutes, I think is less. But if you have a Google study on that, I'd like to see that. So I do that to shift my schedule forward, and then when I need to avoid blue light, and I went to Google again, and I have blue blocking glasses. These glasses are funny. They make sort of blue things look gray, and then I don't have to worry about it. It's a little weird to get used to, and then everything looks yellow, and then when you take them off, everything looks different. But then you can do anything normally, and you can see as long as it doesn't require you to distinguish the color blue or shades of it, because you can't see it very well. So I bought these. These are like under 1,000 yen from Amazon. And I told my friends, hey, I got these great blue blocking glasses on Amazon, under 1,000 yen. And my friend said, could you pay a little more and get ones that look better? So I have another version that's somewhat more suitable for public that doesn't quite look as lame, but it still is blue blocking. So I have to wear these, like, when I'm leaving, you can see actually, I have to actually wear the sunglasses until around noon on the last day before I leave. So it's easy just to put on the sunglasses and you forget you're wearing them, as you can see pretty much everything as normal then. So that's the plan. This takes effort. Like, I'm staying up crazy hours, like staying up until 8 a.m. in the morning. You can sleep anytime, by the way. If you feel tired and if it's okay to sleep, sleeping doesn't change your schedule. So it's about the light, not about when you're actually sleeping. So it doesn't mean that usually on these days when I'm staying up until 8 a.m., I'll catch a nap here, because I can't sleep until 2. So I'll catch a nap here, blue light, and then when I wake up, I'll put on the shades and then have mostly a normal day. So let's see. If for shorter trips, it's not worth it. If you're only going for a few days, you can't shift. This is shifting my schedule a full 24 hours, right, as it goes through the day. So if it's a day or two, it's not worth it to do it. This is about a week, and then I think it usually is worth it to be awake during the times when I want to do things. So the lessons, guidelines for jet lag. So the simple thing is that traveling west is the best. It's easier to move your schedule towards the west and stay up late. Okay, usually my bedtime is 10 o'clock or so. I'll just stay up for a later time and shift your schedule that way. Of course, at some point you have to come home, which means you're going to travel the opposite way. But when I go to the States, I would go to New York, which is basically traveling west from here, and then from New York, I would go to California and get used to it there, and then go from California to Japan. And that's a very easy trip. If you go Japan, California, New York, it's not going to be nice. You'll find yourself very tired. And one of the reasons is you can shift your schedule 2 hours later by staying up late, but you can only move it 1 hour faster. When it's easy to delay, harder to pull it forward. So when I'm going to San Francisco is exactly on the line. It's 8 hours difference. So I stay up 2 hours later every night and shift my schedule. So the first night I stay up 4 hours later, and then 2 hours later every day afterwards until I'm close enough to the timeline of where I want to be. If you're going the other way, if you were going someplace closer around the scenery picture. Okay, that said, there's one more trick here. How do you think I did the bullet effect?
You scratched your screen?
It's a plastic bag.
Oh, okay.
Dragged across the photo line just as it's taking the picture the whole way across to give the bullet effect. This took a few tries to get it to go. Okay, and ijo desu. That's the end of my lecture. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Joiger Wendy.
What?
Ich habe eine Frage.
Ja? Was ist das?
Tengo una pregunta.
Sí,
I forgot
adelante.
how to say in English. I would want to come back to what you were saying, that the jet lag stuff.
Yeah.
The adaptation schedule is better for long stays.
Yeah.
I would have thought it's rather the opposite, because if you stay for 1 week in San Francisco, you have more time to adapt.
Right.
And if you're going just for a 2-day business trip, you really need to be very alert on the next day. So I would think that you would need that kind of adaptation schedule for short-term business trips.
That's a good point. Yeah, I agree. It means that you will need to spend. Well, this is 4 days it took me to get ready to go to San Francisco, but and then it's about another. I mean, I'm not. It's about another then 6 days to get ready to go back. But you're right. If it's super important that you are at your top during those games or during that time, then maybe it is.
I did both. I have these 1 week stays for conferences, and usually fly on the weekend, and you have 1 day to just try and adapt as you can.
Right.
And then it's just the whole conference. But sometimes it's just you're going there just for 1 day to meet some important people, and then you really need to be very awake.
So one interesting fact about jet lag and the alertness. For example, when they have away games, I pointed out there's a peak time here when you're very alert. And they've done statistical studies of away games for basketball teams and football teams. And they find that whichever team has their time shifted, so the game time is here, usually wins. So I had a friend who was going to compete in a martial arts tournament, and I made him a plan just so that his competition time would be here, when he had the most advantage. So yeah, it could be worth it for a short trip too.
Tengo una pregunta.
Sí, adelante. Okay.
Have you heard of New Room? I bought it before. It's an eye mask with LED controlled by AI. Maybe it's not AI, but like it controls the LED light color
Okay.
while you're sleeping.
Huh.
Yeah, I bought it in Kickstarter before. Yeah,
Huh.
Maybe you can try it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So the question is, have I heard of Neuron, which is Neuron?
New Room.
New Room? Okay, which is glasses you can wear that will then, while you're sleeping, give you the right blue light. I think that would really work. Sometimes when it's I'm trying to shift my schedule, and it's like 5 a.m. I get tired. Okay, I'll just sleep on the couch, and I put the blue light right in front of me, and my eyes are closed, but the blue light goes through your eyelids. So I think that would probably be a good product.
Yeah, but one thing it didn't work for me is one time it ran out of battery before I
Oops.
and it didn't do anything and it didn't make alarm. So
Ah.
yeah, I was able to.
Silent failure. Oops, and you're asleep. Okay. Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
To be there.
Okay. Yes?
Do you have any recommendation in what to do in airplane?
In the airplane? Airplanes are hard. If you get this out and like start shining it on the airplane, the guy next to you is gonna say, "Knock that off." So I usually have to make my schedule so that during this time when I'm flying, I can't be doing anything. On the airplane, they'll let you wear sunglasses. That's okay. Like if you get to the point where you can wear sunglasses, if you get out of the blue zone, that's all right. But other than that, usually on airplanes, I try to shift my schedule ahead of time so that the airplane is this white area, which is sleep, don't sleep, if you're tired, blue light, no blue light, doesn't matter. So I try to avoid that because when you're changing between airplanes or other things, you can't manage the light as well.
Are you going to try this for the first time, or have you?
Oh, I do this every time.
And have you actually?
Works great.
Found
Yeah.
out that it has benefits actually.
Oh yes, yeah. I don't fall asleep in the middle of the day or nod off. I did a trip with my whole family, and it was hard to get them to stay up and use the blue lights and things. My daughter's more enthusiastic than my wife, but it made the trip much smoother. I'll sometimes get a little tired, but nothing like before where I'm just can't. Like trying to stay awake. No, this is much better. I do this every time. Okay, it's lunchtime, I guess, so thank you very much for your attention.